actual land by others and not by ourselves. That we objected to, and the British should know that. This is Zimbabwe.
Well then, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to 10 Minutes with Kuhle. As you just saw the video that I've just played now, that is the unfortunate reality that South Africa is heading towards because of the racist and communist agenda that our ANC government has. And I can promise you the West is not about to tolerate that nonsense. You saw what happened in Zimbabwe when then passed away President Robert Mugabe in his infinite wisdom told, the UK that you keep your 10 Downing Street, I'll keep my Zimbabwe. I'll keep Harare and you stick to your affairs. And you'll remember that our president in his infinite wisdom, Ramaphosa, and Donald Trump, you keep your White House, we keep our union buildings. You were never here during the struggle. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it's no secret that the key instigators in land grabs have been the EFF, have been the ANC. Well, MK have not really said too much except for the fact that they support it, but the MK support of land redistribution without compensation is a very wayward and backward one, where they say that land needs to go back to the chiefs and kings, basically take us that rubbish. That is what's happening. The EFF and the ANC have pulled this through because now remember, this is the EWC Act. It's no longer. It's something that has been passed through. It is something that has already...
Earlier this year to change the country's constitution to allow for the confiscation of white-owned land without compensation. The land would then be redistributed among black farmers. South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa recently announced that his ruling ANC would try to push through that amendment. And earlier this week, there were reports that the land seizing from white farmers had begun. 2 farms in the northern province of Limpopo were targeted. Farmers were offered less than 10% of the land's market value, and talks with the owners to buy the properties collapsed. Now, the plan is not only sparking controversy among South Africans. Shortly after Fox News aired a segment.
Will you have a look at that? So the South African government, in its infinite wisdom, decided that they are going to, buy 2 pieces of land that were not even, or plots of land rather, not pieces, 2 plots of land that were not even supposedly at the price that they should be sold at. They bought this.
A politician who initially proposed the land reform plan lashed out at President Trump, demanding that he stay out of South Africa's domestic affairs.
We remain unshaken. Actually, we are more determined after the Donald Trump tweet to expropriate our land without compensation. There's no white genocide here. It's an absolute rubbish to say there is white genocide. There is black genocide in the USA. They are killing black people.
Lad, at 10%, look at the leadership we have in this country. It's pathetic. You've got a leader of the 4th biggest party, a sizable party that holds 10% of the electorate, telling a global player and a country that Donald Trump leads, President Donald Trump leads, right, that you must go away with your supposed agenda. What rubbish is this, Julius Malema? It is wrong. We've got to hold these commies account. When I watched this video, and I told you today's video will be a compilation of new and old videos. So you're going to see brand new videos. And I promise you, you will see the video of EFF members actually going to take land. Whenever I say something, you will see it. Just stick to the video. Now, it's shocking and it's disgusting that you've got Julius Malema saying such. It's utter rubbish that he can go on and say that, look, Donald Trump, you must do 1, 2, 3. You won't tell us there's no white genocide. Did you hear that? There is no white genocide according to Julius Malema. But what do I expect? Of course, I could not expect more from that, tin pot baby. I could not expect more from him. I really could not. It would be so wrong of me to expect more from Julius. But this is South Africa. These are the politicians that you voted
here in Malboro. And I spoke to a lady who
just get used
was
to it.
wearing
now here, watch another video of the EFF land grabs in
as well as a card with her name. Of course, I'm not allowed to reveal that as far as she's concerned. But what she basically told me was the fact that people are being allocated land in Waterfall. So people have gathered here to bring their IDs as well as their documentations to be allocated. We've seen a couple of vans with metal zinc that, is used to build shacks that are going that side. And they're saying that people are being allocated that land. As far as I'm concerned, and as far as I'm told, it is the EFF that is behind this and are giving people land. Some people speaking to them here saying that they...
So if you think it ends there and you want to say, but no, Kuhle, you know what, these people are trying to find a home for themselves, due to apartheid this, apartheid that, they don't have a home. Let's understand them. That is rubbish. I just want to tell you, that is utter rubbish. That is not true. These are land invaders. These are land grabbers. Why don't they go and grab land elsewhere? There's so much land for you to go and grab in the middle of nowhere. But you go to the suburbs to purposely demarket or to devalue, rather, the value of the houses in the suburbs. That's what the EFF is doing. It's the constant mind of trying to hurt white people that, okay, no, it's fine. You live in Waterkloof. Let's go and build a shanty town in Waterkloof. We're not building proper houses, don't get it wrong. Nah, even when they steal the land, we're not going to build proper houses. You heard they brought corrugated iron to a place in Sandton. Marlborough's in Sandton, by the way, if you didn't know. We're going to build. We're going to do 1, 2, 3. We're going to do X, Y, Z. It's utter rubbish. And what's worse is that it's EFF people calling these people, say, come, get land, bring your IDs. I can't make this stuff up. I really can't. I wish this was a Disney movie or a fairy tale where I could, write and then, get credits. I don't. It's the reality. It's what's happening. The ANC, EFF, and MK have allowed for it to happen. And then you've got Gayton McKenzie, who somehow looks like he's part of Cyril Ramaphosa's scrotum because it's difficult to separate it. He says he's against it, but he supports Cyril Ramaphosa as if that's his life support. I get so emotional when I watch these stories. I get so emotional. Let's move to Cape Town and watch what the EFF did in Cape Town. Have a watch at this video.
I'm very afraid because we've got people at the back of our yards there. Xhosa people and colored people shouldn't be renting spaces at the back in the houses. They should be owning their own plots at the back there.
So what is the plan of action now? We are seeing that residents are getting ready to start their protest action. What is the plan from now onwards? Are you willing to engage the city once more? What is the plan of action on the ground as well?
Look at that. Chaos. Burning of streets. Burning your own streets. I mean, I don't mean to be mean or rude, but how slow do you get to burn your own street? You burn your own streets instead of burning the street of the politician. Instead of going there and demanding for your things there, you go and burn your own streets or burn streets of innocent people that have got nothing to do with this. Mind you, most people that live in the suburbs actually bought the land. Go and check that land audit out before Stats SA tells you something else. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to show you, because I don't like to talk without showing you evidence, I'm like that. I want you to see it for yourself, so that people don't say that I'm an instigator or I am a liar or I'm 1, 2, 3. Yesterday I released a video. I came with proof. I'm not even pushing anything. I'm just saying, this is the proof. Here you go. Take it, watch it for yourself. See what's going on in this country. Watch what is happening in Vlakfontein.
Residents there are saying
Just
their
watch
land
what's
has been
happening in
taken,
Vlakfontein and
paid
tell me.
for, but
ENCA's Nkobile Matlatla brings us this report.
This is the map of Dreamland. The area falls under Vlakfontein and Gauteng. The plan here was to start a 20 million rand development for private housing, shopping centres, and even a cemetery. But that's all gone now, as the man entrusted with this project tries to salvage what's left of the land. In 2018, an informal settlement started popping up. They had bought the land illegally for about 20,000 rand a stand, paid even more despite the custodian of the land getting a court order to evict.
we're having a problem with land grabs here, where there's a gentleman selling our properties out to people and claiming the land belongs to him. He's taking money from the community, selling our land off, threatening us that they'll burn us down if we interfere and we will never get a land and land belongs to him. And we're getting no help from the government or the police force in Didier even to get rid of the guy.
In fact, what we need to do now is to make sure that at least we meet with the owners. I know some of them, they do have court orders and we can assist them to implement their court orders. We can assist them, but it's their responsibility, but we can assist them with a joint operation committee. because the bylaws, they belong to us, and we must also inform the police and so forth. But it must be the title holders who execute capo, who implement the court orders.
The community wasn't willing to speak on camera, but are pleading with the landowner to sell this land at a reasonable cost.
Just look at that. So apparently in this community, a group of foreign nationals, right? Now remember, EFF has been calling for foreign nationals to come into South Africa and come in and take land. Let me even say, I don't need to put that video. You all know it, where he said, you must find creative ways to come into South Africa. Okay, they've come in, they came in, they took this poor white Afrikaner guy's land. This land was supposed to develop, was supposed to build malls, which was going to create jobs for South Africans, jobs for black people. Wake up. It was supposed to bring cheap or low-cost housing. Now it has brought shacks. Land was sold. This land was actually sold to shack dwellers. Look at the crimes that are going on in this country, guys. We can't make this stuff up. You think we live in a movie, honestly. I agree with Mcebisi Dlamini when he said that South Africa is like a movie, that every day there's something new. You even forget what was new last week. I mean, honestly, my gosh, I can't. I honestly just can't. You know what? I'm up to here when it comes to South Africa. I am really, really up to here. I don't know what you think. I've lost hope. A place that was meant to create jobs. People have come in and built shacks. The same people that live in those shacks would have been working, for God's sake. Pardon my language. Honestly, I'm up to here when it comes to South Africans. Not just South Africans, but to these communistic, racist, supposed black agenda from the EFF and the ANC. Look at the mess that Hillbrow, Sunnyside, is in because of these guys. Hillbrow and Sunnyside were shining suburbs during their days of apartheid, a space where young people came to seek their fortunes in the big cities. Now today they are drug dens, filled with foreign nationals, filled with crime, filled with brothels because of these hoodlums from the EFF and from the ANC. I'm up to here when it comes to them. I want to leave you all with this video. Apologies, the camera got cut there, by the way, if you see the difficulty with the integration of the video. Nonetheless, have a watch at this video and tell me what you think of South Africa's future.
Let's head overseas now, where South African President Cyril Ramaphosa has a new law allowing land seizures by the state without compensation if the government determines it is quote-unquote just and equitable and in the public interest to do so. Now, the reasons for nil compensation can vary from abandonment or disuse to health and safety concerns or quote-unquote public interest, which could be basically anything the government of the day thought was good. They've been pushing for this for 5 years. They've had lengthy public consultation processes, and it repeals the Expropriation Act of 1975, which, much like compulsory acquisition here, said you had to be compensated if the government took your land. Now, some members of the South African government are saying they're going to challenge the legality of all of this, Evelyn. But the idea that the government could come in for any reason it deems to be in the public interest and take your land away for zilch is insane.
Oh, it is. But this is the future. I know this is like from one extreme to another, but like, think about what we're doing in our country with the Indigenous. Like, we continually are giving back land under the guise of, we're the oppressors and we took this, we colonized. But this is exactly how it started in South Africa. And so, I think we've got to be really careful and see this heed this as a warning. I mean, look at Zimbabwe. This happened in Zimbabwe. This is going to be Zimbabwe 2.0. There's going to be food shortages. There's going to be all kinds of poverty. And then they're going to be asking for the people that they kicked out of their country to come back and help them, essentially. It's really sad. I have some friends in South Africa. I've interviewed some farmers over there who are massively being genocided. There's no other word for it. And it's really scary because some of these farms have been in families for 400 and something years. It's not like they've walked in there in the last, 50 odd modern years. Like, these have been generational farms. And now the government can essentially come in and say, you know what, because you're a white farmer in South Africa, we're going to take this land back because it's not benefiting our country to have you here anymore.
And that'll be the public interest argument.
Exactly.
We had apartheid, which was awful, and then the pendulum seems to have gone completely the other way.
So, over the weekend, President Cyril Ramaphosa spoke at Zimbabwe's agricultural show in Harare, He applauded Zimbabweans on their land reform as essential for historic redress, food security, and growth, despite the fact that Zimbabwe is not experiencing any of that, as well as to transfer, large-scale farms from white ownership to black ownership as some form of success. It was therefore, according to him, essential that the government embarked on ambitious reforms to facilitate the entry of black Zimbabweans into productive agriculture. Close quote. But this ambitious program came with a heavy, heavy price tag. Now, not so heavy as the national dialogue, but listen up. So, Zimbabwe obviously has experienced a lot of economic collapse and does have many trade deficits with many countries. When Zimbabwe launched its fast-tracked land reform program in the year 2000, the GDP plunged by over 40% between the years 2000 and 2008. Agricultural exports, once 90% of foreign earnings, collapsed by 90% in 2001. Hyperinflation peaked at 89.76 billion% in November 2008. Fast forward to 2024, exports to South Africa are about $2.05 billion. Imports from South Africa are about $9.5 billion, a 2 billion trade deficit. Now, fuel imports is about $956 million. Maize imports is about $602 million. Zimbabwe went from being an agricultural exporter to a net importer, traded or trapped in deficit cycle. Hardly the success story some make it out to be, i.e. Ramaphosa. It went from being the breadbasket of Africa to being the basket case. Now, many sectors in Zimbabwe suffer, and we can go on and on and on and on. Land reform rippled through every corner of Zimbabwean society. Healthcare plunged, hospitals closed, medicine shortages fueled, HIV and TB spikes, points where they could not even get paracetamols, education suffered, schools ran out of supplies. Teacher immigration led to classroom collapse because all their teachers in South Africa. Infrastructure crumbled, roads and power lines fell into despair without maintenance funds. Hospitals, once staffed by amazing doctors, they fled economic collapse. They now serve fewer patients. Class sizes balloon. Is the next generation. This is critical schooling. And decaying roads make farm-to-market transport a gap. Doesn't this sound like South Africa? But the end part of South Africa? Now, Fast Track obviously didn't just shift land, it shifted people. Unemployment soared above 80% at the peak, pushing 3 million Zimbabweans to migrate to South Africa. South African border towns saw spikes in xenophobic tensions and crimes as services buckled under the influence. Corruption and human rights abuses escalated, forced evictions, violence against farmers, politicized judiciary, all a mess. This mass exodus has become part of South African daily life. Job competition in urban centers, pressure on healthcare and schooling, and social friction that no party can ignore. Hence, I say this sounds like the end picture of where South Africa is going to. It really is grim in Zimbabwe. Tourism was once a growth sector for Zimbabwe. That tagged. International arrivals dropped by 65% from 2000 to the year 2009. Foreign direct investment dried up as property rights were erased overnight. Investors fled, banks froze loans, and local entrepreneurs found credit impossible. That's not solidarity, that's isolation. We've got to call it what it is. Now the question is, what South Africa must watch for? If South Africa adopts a similar path, which it is already, here's where we could mirror Zimbabwe's pain. Investor confidence erodes when property rights blow, and it has already started. Credit markets tighten, crippling small business growth and infrastructure. Mind you, that's what BEE and EA does. Too much red tape, and this will make it worse. Healthcare and education funding widens the gap as tax revenues dive. Increased migration puts extra strain on public services and fuels social tension. Tourism declines if global travelers fear instability. Land reform is vital, but not if it undermines the very economy and institution we need to make it work. So, ladies and gentlemen, we need a balanced path forward. And let me give you something. We can and must address certain injustices happening in South Africa. That is true. But it's clear, expropriation without compensation is actually illegal. We need robust support for new farmers, credit training, market access infrastructure, strong anti-corruption measures, and legal safeguards. Phased implementation tied to measurable economic and social benchmarks. That's what we need. That's how we will turn redress into resilience. Should ask him. Now, ladies and gentlemen, just need to highlight a couple of things. We can all argue and say, the land is in whoever's hands, it's in X, Y, Z. Cool. But we live in an age where we should stop treating economics as if you are treating your friend. And we should treat economics as business, because it is business. And expropriation without compensation is theft. We've got to call it what it is. There are many ways of having land reform and land redress. And trust me, expropriation is one of the worst methods, because the only thing that is going to happen is black people will continue getting poorer and poorer, and no land will be transferred into black people's hands. So, don't be fooled by what Ramaphosa said. It's a farce. What's going on in Zimbabwe is not a success story. Otherwise, we wouldn't have so many Zimbabweans in South Africa. Just be logical about it. Please. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been 10 Minutes with Kuhle. Please do consider signing up for membership. It's as cheap as 20 Rand. It helps to keep us on air. As well as you can support this channel by subscribing and sharing our message far and wide. You can also buy me a coffee by sending me a super chat in the comments below. Till next time, stay blessed, stay safe, and see you soon.